Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be cooking Thanksgiving with you guys. This is my third year cooking our Thanksgiving, and I feel like I've gotten most of it down, although I am changing some recipes this year, so I have no idea how that's gonna go. But I want to give you a few disclaimers before we get into this video. One, it is a real-time cooking with me. Like, this is actually gonna be what we eat for Thanksgiving for the next couple of days. Cooking it early so I can get it on YouTube and share it with you guys, but that means there's going to be noises in the background, there's going to be dogs, there's going to be all kinds of things happening in this video. It is going to be very much a vlog kind of situation. So this is your warning. Welcome. Also, we are still in the middle of a bit of a kitchen update, so it is slightly chaotic in here. I appreciate your patience while we do that. So to start off Thanksgiving, I have pulled out my laptop because I normally watch the Gossip Girl Thanksgiving episode, and I'm also going to go ahead and pull my hair back because, you know, at some point I can turn this fan on behind me, but right this second I can't, and it's hot. I like to cook things a couple of different ways. Because I'm cooking everything today, I'm going to work backwards-ish. So I have the oven you can see over there, and I don't think you can really see it, but I have a convection oven on the side, and I'll split up depending on the size of the sheets, like what I'm doing, what I'm using, where things go. But I normally start with desserts because a lot of times those need to set and kind of cool down. And I also have to bear in mind the time that it would take me to make all the pastry, for it to sit in the fridge, and for me to roll it out, and you have to bake the individual pastry before you bake the dough. So my first tip for this is to kind of map out the actual time that it takes for something. If I were you, I would go in and look at, okay, how long does it take if you're making the crust? We're going to talk about shortcuts in a second, but if you're making everything from scratch, go through and look at how long it actually needs to set in between steps, and that can help you plan it more efficiently. If you have 2 days to do this, like you're actually going to cook your turkey on Thanksgiving morning, I would encourage you to do all of your prep work the night before. So do your desserts and go ahead and put together all of your sides. If you have more time, or if it would be more comfortable for you, if this is your very first time cooking Thanksgiving, maybe you can space it out over 3 days and cook desserts on one day, cook sides, go ahead and cook them, and then on Thanksgiving morning cook your turkey, and then you can warm your sides up so you're not so overwhelmed by it, because it can be a lot to have a lot of pans going in the kitchen, especially if you're making a lot of recipes you've never made before. So typically what I would do is I use quite a few recipes from Danielle Walker's Celebration Cookbook, which is on the counter right now. There's a big locker saving on top of it. I use several recipes from that, but I'm going to use a different turkey recipe this year because everything wasn't quite set up like I anticipated it to be set up in Whole Foods when I went shopping originally, and we're going to try a non-brining method. If you're brining your turkey, you're going to need an extra 24 hours. So this recipe is from Downshiftology. I will link it in the description box below. I will link all of the recipes in the description box below for what I'm making. But the menu is as follows. Pumpkin pie, I'm doing a chocolate tart. I might do some mini apple pies. I had planned with those, but you guys follow along, you know, my hormones are always fun, and I started my period today, which means now I want a chocolate tart instead of apple pie. So I can't have the pumpkin pie because it has cinnamon in it, so that will be all for mom. I'm doing a dressing, turkey, gravy, and then I'm also going to be doing cream spinach. Now, I typically do a green bean casserole or green bean something, but I haven't found a recipe I love. In the last 2 years, I've made the same one, and we don't like it. We don't really end up eating it. I don't know why I made it again. I think I kind of forgot how much I didn't like it the year before, and I made it again last year. So at some point, I would like to do one for our community and put it on the blog, but I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to go with cream spinach. I also have turnips in there, but that can be cooked on another day as we kind of work through our kitchen. So to start the prep for this, I'm going to go through and do the pumpkin pie and the chocolate pecan tart, at least the dough, and kind of getting that all done and set aside, and then we can start on the turkey, because for Lisa's recipe from Downshiftology, she wants the turkey to come to room temp. So he's chilling over here. If you've never bought a turkey before, you've never done any of the roasting, any kind of turkey situation, 2 things to be mindful of. One, the size of your turkey. Obviously, it feeds a different portion of people, but you also need to be mindful of the size of your turkey in relation to the size of the pan or pot that you're using. We have this quite hefty La Crusade dish, and it fits between a 12 and 13 pound turkey. And if you go over that, we're cutting off pieces and it becomes really awkward. So just know ahead of time if you're using something you already have in your kitchen, or if you need to buy something, what that's going to look like. The other thing is I'm using a lot of shortcuts this year, or at least a few shortcuts. Typically, the recipe that I use for dressing requires you to make the bread yourself. So it is made in the blender. It is made with a lot of eggs, a lot of cashews. And I bought some of it this year, but then I realized, you know, thankfully in the last couple of years, paleo has expanded, got more popular, which means it's a little bit easier to get my hands on stuff. So if you are really short on time, just look at where you can pull and make things a lot quicker and a lot easier for yourself. So I will be using the base culture keto bread. I have a loaf of it, and I'm actually gonna half and adjust some of these recipes. And I'll tell you what recipes I'm adjusting in case you wanna make these yourself. Because some of them I just feel like we get an obscene quantity of it and we never eat it all. Now, gravy, I'm not sure how that's gonna turn out this year because typically I use the whole brining system and everything that Danielle has in her book. So with this, I don't know how that turkey situation is going to turn out. It might be similar, but I also have a really easy from scratch recipe that I'm going to make for gravy that I'll show you. But if you need it in like recipe form, make sure you sign up for the newsletter below because that will be on the blog for 25 days of recipes. And man, this is the longest intro ever. But I feel like those are some good tips to kind of get you started. Is know how long you have. If you've never done this before, give yourself more than enough time. Split it between 3 days. It's almost so much easier to cook everything ahead and only cook your turkey the day of and then reheat your sides. Most sides are going to be just as great reheated, or they can be fully prepped in the fridge so that all you're doing is baking them the morning of. So make it easy for yourself. Do what you got to do. Keep it really simple. And yeah, we are going to kick this off with some pie. Actually looks like quite a bit of dough. So there is potential that it could be something that you make like 1.5 of and it's enough for your recipe. We shall see.
All right, guys, so let's talk about this pie dough because I realized as I was making it what I was getting into. And I've made this recipe several times over the last couple of years, but when I was making it today, I realized just how much dough was going into it. Now, I looked back at the recipe that I have on the blog, and to be honest, I prefer my pie crust because I've made it before and it's mine. But I went with tradition today just to kind of see, reaffirm myself. And this is quite a lot of dough. So I talk about this a little bit, and I don't know if I'll mention it again because we're doing the voiceover now, but I kind of went through this, and you can definitely do this in the food processor. If you have that, it's a lot easier, it's a lot quicker, it's just a lot less of a hot mess to deal with. I mixed the eggs separately before I added them into the dough just to make it easier, because when you're trying to get everything spread evenly, especially amongst this quantity, it's a bit of a challenge. So I'm adding in the palm shortening, and I'm going to go in with a pastry cutter. Now, this isn't something you have to worry about if you're using the food processor, but I realized as I was doing this and things were kind of going over the side that this quantity of dough was just a lot, and it was going to be a lot for specifically if I was using it for like one pie. And this recipe does accommodate the fact that with the pumpkin pie, you would pull a portion of the dough away so that you could make little cutouts and hearts or leaves or whatever, and I actually added more water than was originally required by it. So I went until I felt like there was a nice texture with it. It was a good space that I was quite comfortable with, and I ended up deciding to put this in the fridge. So what I would normally do with a pie dough is I would put it on a beeswax wrap and put that in the fridge to kind of let it chill, but I grabbed my baking sheet, I grabbed my slip mat, and I just put it on there and I put it in the fridge. And even just kind of pushing it out and like knowing the spacing of it, I realized that it was definitely just a lot, and that it would be a lot easier for me to use this for both pies, which is what you will see that I am going to do.
All right, guys, brief intermission while I went on the hunt for this guy. So this is my favorite kitchen utensil, kitchen investment, especially for Thanksgiving. And it is a very easy to use, very easy to read turkey thermometer. So you don't have to really worry about the time on it. That way you're not like trying to calculate and getting a turkey and it's not cooked and just feeling very overwhelmed. But the situation just kind of eliminates all of that. So I'm going to go through and prep it according to the recipe that I have, which is Lisa from Xoxo. And then what I'm going to do is set this guy up. So I'll show you what it looks like in case you want one. So this can walk around with you, it can clip on, it turns on, and then this guy goes into your turkey and then you leave this guy on the outside of it. So you have the range that you really want your turkey to be at. I think it's between 158 and 165. Most of the time poultry is a 165 Fahrenheit temperature. And that is my favorite way to know when something is done, just because I feel like when you can test the temperature, you end up really saving all the juices inside of your meats, which makes everything more tender and it just tastes a lot better. So I'm going to do that, but we're going to start with a prep for this. So I did buy this obscene amount of garlic, which already smells like garlic, like strong. But I knew that I was going to need to use a lot of it. So I'm going to prep and make the butter that goes inside of it, chop everything, set everything up. And yeah, let's make turkey. Also, the oven is preheating for 325. So we're going to get this situated, and then from there, I can kind of make everything in the small oven while this is happening. It's one of the benefits of having a convection oven. You just have to make sure that the dishes that you're going to use are going to fit in the convection oven. And if you're watching this video on the week that it goes live, I believe my air fryer convection oven is still on sale at Williams-Sonoma, which is where I got it. I will link that down below. I also put it in the ultimate gift guide. If you guys haven't seen all of the Christmas gift guides that are on the blog, I will link those down below as well. But yeah, it is on sale. Highly recommend it. It is the most used piece that we have, especially because the oven tends to heat up the house a little bit more, so it saves a smidge on electricity because we use it for everything at some point in every day. We use it as a toaster, we use it as an air fryer, we use it as an oven. It gets used for all of the things all the time. Alright guys, and like I mentioned before, this is my first year making some of these recipes, and that's not something I would always recommend doing, but we always have to try new things, and it's great to learn and try. So this is my first year making this turkey, and I'm glad that I got to show you guys this turkey because it is quite easy to do. Like, it's just a very simple recipe, but I've gone in the kitchen and tried it while I'm editing this video, and I just honestly did not like. And as I'm editing this video and watching it back, I realized this when I pulled the turkey out, but there were some things that I did not fully get out when I was cleaning out the turkey and pulling out the neck. But the biggest thing for me is that I just love the way that it tastes when you brine the turkey because it infuses into everything. So that is just something that I've learned for myself this year and is something that I will change to going forward. I tried to not brine it. Mom is very big on like a not brining kind of classic roasting situation.
but that didn't work for me. The other thing that I really struggle with doing this particular recipe is that you are essentially putting the butter combo that you saw me make inside, like underneath the skin of the turkey, to kind of give it some hydration, some flavor, all of that jazz. And I just felt like doing it with my hands was not a good option. It was so messy, and I felt like I never really got a lot of the butter on there. I felt like I just really struggled with it. But I also feel like it didn't make that big of a difference. Again, I've tasted it, and maybe it's, like I said at the beginning of this video, we are currently at that time of the month, and sometimes that changes things for me. But I just wasn't wowed. I would add maybe more salt, maybe something else. I love it when my turkey is just bomb on its own. And one of the things that makes the gravy recipe I normally use so amazing is because of the flavors that come from the brine. So as a basic recipe, this is a great option if you just do not have the time, but I don't think I would make it again.
Okay, so pie time. And I'm actually going to start with the tart. So, and press it up the sides. So, this dough is definitely, this recipe is meant for if you wanted to do toppings for a pie, but I'm just going to keep it as a thin tart.
Alright, so I actually made several adjustments to this pie dough simply because it was what worked for me. So I swapped in almond milk instead of coconut milk. I went to melt the coconut oil, and I always make sure that it's on a temperature that's not too hot. Sometimes I'll just use MCT oil, but you don't want to scramble your eggs when you're prepping it. I've also pulled out the decaf coffee you can see sitting next to the coconut sugar. I halved the amount of coconut sugar that I needed for this recipe because I was using chocolate chips that have coconut sugar in them and are a bit sweeter. I didn't really need that excess amount, and it ended up being okay liquid wise. I don't think I could have done anything more than that. I'm also using a chopper to chop my nuts. You could easily do this with a cutting board, but we have it, so I thought I would use it. And it ended up working out perfectly fine. I was really happy that I ended up going with less dough. To be honest, when I go to make the pumpkin pie, I'm not sure how much I'll show that because we're still editing, but when I went to make the pumpkin pie, it was so full in the pie dish simply with half the dough. And it might be the dish that I used, but it ended up being just the right amount of crust. And I also realized as I was going to put this in the oven that I did not bake this dough before I went to put it in, which was a separate problem. So I thought that I had baked it, and I just got so distracted talking to you guys that I totally failed, which is what I kind of wanted to do with this video, so I can show you how to fix those failures. So yeah, we're going to talk about that because it happened and it needs to be rectified.
Also just realized that I didn't bake the crust beforehand. So this is gonna be an interesting test because normally you do that, and I got really distracted and I did not. So we're gonna adapt and see how that goes. I might have to cover everything with foil and just adapt a bit. Again, like I said, this is real-time cooking, and sometimes I forget to do things. I get so distracted by the fact that I'm filming or something else is happening. So if you too have forgotten to bake your crust first, welcome to the party. You are not alone.
Okay guys, at this point I've kind of run out of oven space, and I'm trying to find a way to be productive and still get things done. So this year I only had one or two things that really needed to be undone on the stove, and that was the vegetable portion of the stuffing. So I've gone ahead and grabbed everything out of the fridge. I'm chopping and prepping it and putting it into a bowl, and then that will go on the stove to be sauteed because I actually did a little bit cheat this year and I was using bread that was already prepped. So I need the oven to actually kind of crisp that up, but this is a good time if you're in that place where all of the ovens are done or where all your ovens are being used to really just prep as much as you can. Prep and chop things. Give yourself that time where you're not trying to like keep an eye on 17 things on the stove and chop things up. So that was what I was doing. I decided to step aside and kind of prep that. And then I also decided to use my air fryer this year instead of using a traditional baking sheet because I had such a large quantity of bread that I needed to crisp. The best way for me to do that was to use the air fryer because it has the ability to circulate air all around it with the oven, so I didn't have to worry about certain bits not really getting crispy. So that was what I ended up doing, and it was a lot easier overall just to kind of make that happen. Plus, it was something that was available once the other stuff finished baking. So air fryer situation done. Everything is prepped for the middle. I poured myself a glass of wine. I combined it all. And then we're kind of hitting the home stretch here because this needed to go in the oven for the longest amount of time. So while this ends up baking is when I start prepping all of my stove stuff, which wasn't a lot, but it's a good time to kind of do any last minute bits that you need to make happen.
So I was trying to decide if I wanted to make some of the mini apple pies in these. I've already eaten some of the chocolate tart for sure, and I ended up needing to cook that pumpkin pie for longer, and that's something that I found pretty consistently with that recipe and the pan that I use. So I will say, if you go to pull your pumpkin pie out of the oven and it's not set in the middle, like it's still jiggly, put some foil over it, make sure your crust is covered so it doesn't overcook, and then put it back in, 10-minute increments and kind of check on it from there. And then it will solidify a little bit once you let it cool, but really it needs to do a good chunk of that in the oven. Pumpkin pie's done, turkey's done, tart's done. We're on the way to having the dressing done. The pumpkin pie, she didn't look cute, but she's done. I'm sure she's gonna taste lovely. She just got a few blemishes, which is, it's fine. It's all good. We love her as she is. So we've hit another snag. Mostly because I didn't place one of the orders that I was trying to not place, but it's fine. We're going to adapt. So I was going to do the cream spinach, but I don't know the cashews that I need for that. And I could use another nut-based whatever. The cashews essentially are creating the creamy base for it, but I think we're going to adapt. And I have turnips and I'll just use those. So easy way to cook turnips, one of my favorite ways to cook greens if you need just like a simple basic recipe for your Thanksgiving, is to cook them in some kind of broth. So normally what I do is I'll make bacon in the on the stove. A lot of times I make it in the oven because it's just an easy hands-off thing, but I'll make bacon on the stove and then use the grease or whatever is residual from that to cook the turnips in. I don't have regular bacon, I have turkey bacon. So I could either do turkey bacon in the pan and do it that way, or I could cook them in chicken broth. I just like to use something else to kind of flavor it. If you're vegetarian and vegan, you can do it with vegetable broth. It's just a really easy way to flavor them without it being too much, and it is low-key very, very simple because all you're doing is cooking them until they wilt. So I think we're gonna do the chicken broth way, because if I cook the turkey bacon now, then I'm gonna need to find something else to do the turkey in over the next few days, and I can only eat turkey in so many forms. So I don't love the chicken broth. I mentioned this on IGTV the other day. I hate carton chicken broth. There's something about the carton that just like gets in it for me, but the only other option is to make my own, and I don't have the time for that currently. So nor do I have the chicken for that currently. So what we're gonna do is wash and chop some turnips, then I'm gonna put it in the stove and cook it and wilt it down, and bam, easy peasy, very quick green. So if you need something, like maybe you're running out the door, you have a party, you need like something very easy, that's gonna happen. And yeah, like I said, we are adapting as we go with this. This is a very like make it work. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it's your first Thanksgiving, it's really not about making it perfect. It's just about spending time with people you love and trying to do the best that you can. So it's all good. If you need to adapt, we are adapting a lot today, and I hope that this video is kind of helping you see how you can adapt if you come up for those snacks. So let's make some turnips. All right, guys, so we're actually at the point I'm going to show you how to make gravy. I've already taken the turkey out and pulled everything out of it, and I actually sometimes we'll make everything out of what's in the blender, but to be honest, this consistency isn't quite working for me. It's just not not what I need it to be, and it's probably because with this recipe there's just not the same amount of vegetables that would normally be in it, but that's okay. We're gonna actually use this for something else. So let's head over to the stove and I will show you how to make gravy on the stove. Super easy. You need 4 items that are out of your fridge, or you can use the chicken broth that was in turkey broth. We cooked a turkey. The turkey broth that was in your dish down here.
Alright guys, so this recipe is my go-to. It is one of my all-time favorites. It's honestly the best thing to have in your back pocket because the one thing that we run out of the quickest when cooking any holiday meal is always our gravy. Like, it goes so fast. So it took me less than 5 minutes to make this, and I'm doing it using vegan butter. I use the Xoxo because that's my favorite brand, and I'm gonna melt it down, and I want to start with a roux. And if you don't know what a roux is, essentially I'm giving the base the creaminess with the butter and flour. I'm using cassava flour. It's quite starchy. It is a root-based flour. It is gluten-free. It is grain-free. And I'm adding a little bit until I get the equivalent that I need to get it to not really have any butter left, but you have to stir it consistently. So I've gotten my base with that. There's no butter left. It's kind of sticky. And now I'm just going to keep adding and adding and adding my broth. Now, if you've got a pre-flavored broth, like you're using the broth from the bottom of your turkey dish, this might not require as much seasoning, but this chicken broth was quite bland. I probably could have used a bone broth and gotten a bit more flavor out of it. So I just keep adding it until I get the consistency that I want. And because cassava flour is quite chewy, it takes quite a bit of liquid to actually get this where I want it to be. And then I'm just going to add in some coconut aminos, and that's going to give me my flavor. If you can tolerate soy sauce, that's really what I would probably go for, just because it gives that saltiness to it. It also gives you your little bit of color, and then you can salt and add garlic powder, onion powder, anything like that that you want. This is going to vary really depending on the broth that you use, but you can kind of adjust the flavors accordingly. But yeah, so simple. Literally make it every year.
All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me while I made Thanksgiving. Asher is waiting his turn. And yeah, I'm going to leave you guys with a time lapse of me cleaning this all up because that is what comes next. But I hope you guys all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Let me know in the comments below if this video was helpful. I am going to be uploading quite a few cooking videos over the next few months. So let me know what you want to see. Let me know if it's helpful for you if I go slower, if you want more like real-time cooking so you can cook along with it. I'm happy to make whatever works for you guys, less time lapses, whatever floats your boat. Let me know in the comments below. But I love you guys. It is a good day to have a good day, and I hope you all have a beautiful Thanksgiving and a wonderful holiday wherever you are. Bye, guys. Bubba, do you think you're gonna get some Thanksgiving? Do you? Is that what you're here for? Turkey? I think you can have it before Grandma does.